Fox News alert, a nation reeling this morning after at least 19 children and 2 teachers are shot to death inside their Texas school. GOP Texas Congressman Ronny Jackson joins us now. Congressman, thank you so much for joining the program. You represent the state of Texas, although not this district. What are your thoughts on the initially of comfort to the residents of Uvalde?
Well, I don't know, Lawrence, what I can say that hasn't already been said 1,000 times since this happened. You know, our prayers and our thoughts are with the families there. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable evil. And I don't know how someone could actually do something like this. I think, you know, there's going to be all kinds of discussions coming up, unfortunately, you know, in the media regarding Second Amendment and regarding the other issues around guns in this country. But I think we really need to ask the question is, how could something like this happen? How could somebody do something so evil? I mean, what kind of person, what kind of animal can do this? And I think, you know, I grew up in a small town in West Texas, not too much smaller than Uvalde, and I could never imagine something like this happening when I grew up. But when I grew up, things were different. You know, there was a focus on family and community and church, and I think that, you know, we knew each other. And I'm not saying that the people in Uvalde don't know each other, but I think that's been robbed from us. Our culture has changed over the last 30 or 40 years, and there's been an attack on those things in particular. And I just think that kids are exposed to all kinds of horrible stuff nowadays too. I look back and I think about the horrible stuff that they hear when they listen to rap music, the video games that they watch from a really early age with all of this horrible violence and stuff. And I just think that, you know, and they have this access to the internet on a regular basis, which is, you know, is just not good for kids, I don't think. And so I don't know what's going on, but I think we need to stop at this particular point. Nobody needs to be pointing fingers too much right now, but we need to look at why did this happen? How could this happen? And what's wrong with our society? What's wrong with the culture in this country that allows something like this to happen right now?
Yeah. You know, Congressman, I want to get a little personal with you because of your background and what you did in the military, but you were also entrusted in being there if anything tragically happened to 3 presidents, and that is being a trauma surgeon right then and there if something was to happen. All these young people that went to the hospital, some of them were unrecognizable. Talk about what the medical staff had to do to stabilize them, and some, tragically, they had to pronounce them dead on the scene.
Well, it must have been a horrific scene to be in the hospital, to be honest with you, because this is a small community hospital, I'm sure, that's not used to this kind of trauma. They're not a level 1 trauma center. They're not set up to receive even one patient like this, on a regular basis. And to be overwhelmed with this number of patients with horrible, horrible injuries like this, and these are doctors and nurses that, like I said, aren't accustomed to seeing on a day-to-day basis. If you were to go to a large trauma center somewhere in the country, in LA County or Parkland or somewhere, they're used to seeing a lot of this kind of stuff. I mean, it's always hard, no matter what. I don't care how long you work in an emergency department, to see young kids killed and critically injured is just, it's very, very hard to see. And so I think that, you know, those folks they're gonna need some counseling, they're gonna need some support, and I can't even imagine what this community is going through. The other children that witness this stuff, and their lives are just gonna be changed forever, unfortunately. But we need to focus as much as we can as a country on making sure that we help the people in Uvalde heal.
You know, Congressman, a lot of the people locally, especially the state of Texas, although this is Uvalde, it's a part of our home, and Texans are grieving, the country is grieving, and they also want answers from our elected leaders. They don't want partisanship. So,
right.
So what do you think needs to be done to keep these schools safe? There will always be evil. So what can we do to secure these schools?
Well, we have to do a really good job of just getting together and talking about, you know, figuring out where we can meet halfway on this between the left and the right. And I think we all should be in support of trying to harden these places and making sure that we provide the resources so that these schools, can keep their doors locked and maybe have doors that open from the inside where you're buzzed in, so there's a controlled point of entry, and so we know who's coming in and out of these schools, and at least get some kind of early warning if something's happening. So I'm all in favor of spending the money that we need to spend to reinforce that and to make sure that we can make our schools safe for our kids. You know, it's been mentioned a lot that we do this all over the country for other venues, but we don't always do it for our schools. And I know it's difficult. We have so many schools. That's a lot of resources to put into our local and our public schools, but we need to make sure that we're doing that, because we can't have things like this happen. It's just unthinkable and unbelievable and unacceptable.
You know, Congressman, so often we have these conversations and we want to present these big ideas to prevent the next tragedy, and then the next week people forget and they move on to the next news story. So while we're talking about it right now, again, and not to get into the partisanship, what do you think it's going to take this matter seriously? What is the hurdle preventing getting the necessary resources for these schools so they can be secure?
Well, I think something like this, it advances that, because it's hard to forget something like this. I mean, we have shootings all the time, and they're all unfortunate, and I wish none of them happened. But when you see something like this, it's extra horrific. And I think that this will. I know on my part, this will allow me to talk to my colleagues on the other side of the aisle and say, look, I'm a staunch defender of the Second Amendment, and I'm going to remain that way. But what can we do? What can we do to harden these places and to make schools safer? And what can we do to make sure that we're providing the mental health resources that we need, and making sure that we're teaching our kids the right things, and we're preparing our kids for stuff like this? And like I said, I'm all about what can we do to repair the damage that's been done to the culture of this country. I think we need to get God and family and community back into our lives in a big way. And there's been a big push for a long time from some of those on the left and some of those that, at the higher levels that are responsible for educating our kids on keeping that stuff out of the schools. And that's the wrong answer. We need to encourage that within our schools.
Before I let you go, Congressman, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, our governor, is expected to make remarks here and travel. What does he need to say? What tone does he need to strike for the people of Texas?
He just needs to let people know that we're all together on this. That this is one team, one fight when it comes to figuring out what happened here and how to avoid this, and just empathize with the families. And it has been said before that it's not the time for politics right now. And I think that Governor Abbott knows that. I think that he'll be reassuring to the people in Uvalde and to the rest of the country. And I think that's what we need right now. We need somebody who shows some sympathy for what the people in Uvalde are going through, and that can just provide that leadership and that support that we need from our leaders right now.
Congressman Ronny Jackson from the great state of Texas. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Lawrence.
Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life. From Tucker Carlson tonight.